Hey friends, welcome back. Have you ever scrolled through social media and thought, how does she do it all? Her house is spotless, her kids are smiling in matching outfits, she's meal prepping 5 days worth of perfectly portioned lunches, she's working out at 5 a.m., and somehow, she's drinking her lemon water and perfect morning light with a caption about gratitude and new beginnings. Meanwhile, you're standing in the kitchen reheating your coffee for the third time, trying to remember when you last folded the laundry that's been sitting in the basket since Tuesday. Your kitchen counter looks like a science experiment. Your hair is in a bun that was supposed to be temporary 3 days ago, and you're pretty sure you wore these pants yesterday. We laugh about it, right? We make jokes about the mess, the chaos, the reality of life that doesn't fit in an Instagram square. But deep down, it stings. The quiet whisper that says, you're behind. You're behind in success, you're behind in health, behind in parenting, behind in purpose, behind in everything. And if you're honest, really honest, sometimes it feels like everyone else got the manual on how to do life in midlife, and somehow you missed the memo. Today we're talking about the comparison trap, the sneaky voice that tells you everyone else has it together while you're still figuring it out. That constant feeling of measuring your behind the scenes against everyone else's highlight reel. And we're going to talk about how to find peace in God's timing even when your life doesn't look picture perfect. But first, welcome to Graceful Growth in Midlife. I'm Teresa, and we're talking about faith, health, and purpose at this point in life. And if I'm honest, I'm figuring this out right along with you. This podcast isn't about perfect answers or expert advice. It's not about me telling you I've got it all together, because I definitely don't. This is about real conversations that help us grow, one messy, beautiful, imperfect step at a time. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to invite you into something special. This December, I'm offering a free companion guide called This Season of Light, Finding Peace, Purpose, and Renewal in God's Presence. What if this year, instead of rushing through the holidays, you paused to prepare your heart? Instead of adding more to your plate, you made space of what truly matters. This guide will help you slow down, reflect, and discover the wonder of Christ's coming, not just in December, but in every ordinary moment of your life. You can download it for free at thegracefulgrowth.com, but I'll link it below. Now, let's get into today's episode. And today we're going to get real about something that almost every woman I know struggles with, even the ones who look like they have it all together. That feeling that we're somehow behind. Behind in our careers, behind in our health, behind in our parenting, behind in our marriages, in our faith, in our purpose. Behind. And here's what's wild. Even when we know logically, intellectually, that social media isn't real life, that everyone's just showing their best moments, that no one actually has it all together, we still feel it. That pang of inadequacy when we see someone else's success, that twinge of envy when someone announces their dreams come true, that quiet voice that says, what's wrong with me? Why haven't I figured this out yet? But what if, and stay with me here, what if the only thing we're really behind on is remembering who we are in God's eyes? What if we've been measuring ourselves by the wrong standards, running a race we were never meant to run, and trying to keep up with a pace that was never ours to begin with? That's what we're unpacking today. I have a feeling you're going to breathe a little easier by the end of this conversation. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that you can find the full written version of this episode on my blog at thegracefulgrowth.com. I post all of my episodes there, so if something resonates and you want to come back to it and share it with a friend, it's waiting for you. All right, let's get into this. Let's start with the obvious culprit, social media. Now, I'm not going to tell you social media is evil and you need to delete all your apps and go live off the grid. That's not realistic. And honestly, social media can be a beautiful tool for connection, inspiration, and community when used well. But here's what it also becomes: a 24/7 highlight reel of everyone else's best moments. Vacations you can't afford, home remodels you don't have time for, date nights that look like movie scenes, perfect hair days that probably took an hour and 3 tutorials to achieve, the I just threw this together dinners that somehow look like they belong in Food Magazine, body transformation, business launches, dream trips, milestone celebrations. And listen, there's nothing wrong with sharing good things. I'm genuinely happy when good things happen to people I care about. But here's the problem: when we scroll through all of that, post after post after post, our brains don't process it as this person is sharing one moment from their day. Our brains process it as everyone's life is better than mine. Because what we don't see in those posts is the moments between the photos. We don't see the argument that happened an hour before the smiling family photo. We don't see the exhaustion behind the blessed and grateful caption. We don't see the 3 hours of cleaning that happened before the "My home is my sanctuary" post. And we don't see the insecurities, the doubts, the prayers whispered behind closed doors. We don't see the reality, we only see the performance. And yet, when we scroll, our brains don't know the difference. So, what happens? Our brain sees her curated post and compares it to your behind the scenes reality. She's posting her Sunday afternoon when the house is clean and the kids are dressed. You're living your Tuesday morning when the sink is full of dishes and you just realized you forgot to pay that bill. And suddenly, without even realizing it's happening, joy turns into judgment against yourself. We start running that internal script. I should be doing more. I should look like that by now. I should have figured this out already. I should be further along. I should. But here's the truth, and I really need you to hear this. Every should is a thief. It steals gratitude from what's real in your life right now. It steals contentment, it steals peace, and it steals joy. Because when you're constantly measuring your life against someone else's curated version of theirs, you're always coming up short. Always. It's an impossible standard, and it's exhausting. So, can I just say this? Can we just agree on something right now? You're allowed to turn off the comparison machine. You're allowed to unfollow accounts that make you feel bad about yourself, even if they're not doing anything wrong, even if they're perfectly lovely people. You're allowed to take breaks from social media when it stops inspiring you and starts depleting you. You're allowed to stop measuring your everyday reality against someone else's edited highlight reel. Because here's what I've learned: the person you're comparing yourself to, she's probably comparing herself to someone else too. It's a never ending cycle. And the only way out is to stop playing the game altogether. Okay, so we've talked about how comparison shows up, but let's talk about what it actually costs us. Because comparison doesn't just steal joy, though it absolutely does that. It costs us so much more than we realize. First, comparison steals connection. When you're in comparison mode, you can't genuinely celebrate someone else's blessing because you're too busy wondering why it didn't happen to you. Your friend announces she's finally going on that dream vacation she's been saving for, and instead of feeling happy for her, you feel that twist in your stomach, that quiet resentment, that thought of, must be nice, wish I could do that. Or someone shares that they lost weight or got a promotion or bought a house, and instead of celebrating with them, you're spiraling into, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get there? It isolates you from others, yes, but also from gratitude, from contentment, from the ability to see and appreciate the good things in your own life. Because when you're constantly looking at what you don't have, you can't see what you do have. Second, comparison steals your calling. This is a big one. When you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're essentially saying, God, I don't trust that you gave me the right life. I think you made a mistake. I think her life would be better for me. But God didn't give you her life. He gave you yours on purpose, for a purpose. And every moment you spend wishing you had her gifts, her opportunities, her circumstances, you're stepping out of the life God designed specifically for you. Ecclesiastes, I can never say this one. Ecclesiastes 4:4 says this. I've got to figure that out. And I saw all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy to another. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Chasing after the wind. That's such a perfect picture, isn't it? Comparison is exhausting and impossible to win. Because no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you improve, no matter how far you go, there's always someone who looks like they're doing better than you. It's a race with no finish line, a standard that constantly moves, a goal that can never be reached. But here's what I want you to really hear today. You are not called to live her story, you're called to live yours. God didn't make a copy of anyone else when He created you. He didn't look at someone else and say, let me make another one just like her. He made you unique, distinct, with your specific combination of gifts, experiences, passions, and purpose. Psalms 139:13 and 14 says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Didn't we hear something about that last time? You are not a rough draft. You're not a mistake. And you're not less than because your life doesn't look like hers. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, intentionally designed, purposely placed. And when you're so busy looking at her life, you miss the beauty of your own. Tell me that's not true. Third, comparison steals peace. Maybe this is the one you feel the most, the constant underlying anxiety, the sense of never being enough, and that pressure to do more, be more, achieve more, prove more. And underneath all the scrolling, all the striving, all the trying to measure up, what we're really craving isn't approval from others, it's peace. It's peace with who we are, peace with where we are, peace with the pace we're moving at. But comparison is the enemy of peace, because peace requires contentment, and you can't be content when you're constantly looking over your shoulder at what everyone else is doing. So maybe the question isn't, how do I become like her? Maybe the question is, God, how do I become more fully myself, the person you created me to be? Because that's where peace lives, not in becoming someone else, but in becoming who you already are. So one of the hardest parts of midlife, and I think a lot of us don't talk about this enough, is realizing that life doesn't always follow the order we expected. When we were younger, most of us had a timeline in our heads, right? We had like a mental check of how life was supposed to unfold. By this age, I'll have accomplished this. By that age, I'll be here. By midlife, I'll have it all figured out. Nah, right? But then midlife actually arrives, and you look around and realize some people are retiring while you're starting over. Some are becoming grandparents while you're still trying to repair your relationship with your adult children. Some are traveling the world while you're caring for aging parents. Some are launching businesses while you're recovering from burnout. And here's what happens. We look at where other people are and we start measuring, comparing, judging ourselves for not being further along. I should have my finances in order by now. I should have figured out my career by now. I should have lost the weight by now. I should be at a different place spiritually by now. But here's what I've learned, and this has been such a freeing truth for me. God's timing is not Instagram's timing. In fact, God's timing doesn't look like anyone's timing because He's not operating on a schedule that makes sense to us. 2 Peter 3 verse 8 reminds us, with the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. God doesn't measure time the way we do. He's not in a hurry. He's not stressed. He's not worried about what you're behind. Because in His economy, there is no behind. There's only right where I need you to be for what I'm doing in your life right now. God's timing isn't delayed, it's deliberate. He's not punishing you for what's past. He's preparing you for what's next. And sometimes, often, actually, the preparation takes longer than we want it to. It's more painful than we expected. It requires more patience, more surrender, more trust than we feel capable of giving. But God is never wasting your time. Even when it feels like you're stuck, even when it feels like everyone else is moving forward and you're standing still, He's working, He's shaping, and He's refining. I think about the Israelites wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. From outside, it looks like they were just lost, going in circles, wasting time. But God was doing something in them during those years. He was teaching them to depend on Him daily. He was stripping away their slave mentality and forming them into a nation. He was preparing them for the promised land. The wilderness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this season is for you too. Maybe you're not behind, maybe you're being built. Maybe God is doing something in you right now that can only happen in the waiting, in the wilderness, in the season that doesn't look like what you thought it would. So the next time you feel like you're behind, pause and ask yourself, behind whose schedule? Because I guarantee you, most of the pressure you feel isn't divine, it's digital. And it's not coming from God, it's coming from a culture that worships speed and productivity and visible success. But God measures things differently. He doesn't care how fast you're going. He cares about the direction you're heading and whether your heart is turned towards Him. So stop measuring your progress by how far other people have gone. Start measuring it by how faithfully you've been with God, with what God has asked you right now, today, in this season. Because that's all He's ever asked for. Not perfection, not speed, just faithfulness. All right, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about something that I think is one of the most powerful antidotes to comparison, and that is authenticity. Real, unfiltered, messy authenticity. Here's something freeing that I want you to really take in. You don't have to curate your life to be worthy of love or impact. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect to show up. And you don't have to hide the hard parts or pretend you have it all together. In fact, and this might sound counterintuitive, when you show up authentically, messy bun, tired eyes, imperfect home and all, you give other women permission to do the same. That's how real community grows, not through perfection, but through honesty. When you have the courage to say, I'm struggling too, someone else exhales and says, thank God, me too. When you admit, I don't have this figured out, someone else feels safe enough to stop pretending. When you share the reality behind your highlight reel, you break the illusion that everyone else has it together, and that is a gift. Because here's the truth. People don't connect with your perfection, they connect with your humanity. They don't need you to have all the answers, they need you to be real. They don't need you to be flawless, they need you to be faithful. Jesus didn't choose perfect disciples, He chose willing ones. He didn't call the most qualified, the most put together, and the most impressive people. He called the fishermen, the tax collectors, doubters, and deniers. He called people who were messy and flawed and imperfect, and He used them to change the world. He didn't use the flawless, He used the faithful. And He still does. Your authenticity is your ministry. When your life reflects God's grace instead of worldly perfection, you become a light that draws others towards Him. Not because you have it all together, but because you're honest about the fact that you don't, and you're trusting God anyway. That's attractive, that's real, and that's what people are hungry for. So what does this look like practically? It means you stop apologizing for your messy house when someone stops by unexpectedly. It means you stop filtering every photo to hide the reality of your life. It means you stop pretending everything is fine when someone asks you how you're doing. It means you let people see the real you, the tired you, the struggling you, the still figuring it out you. Because that version of you, the real, unfiltered, imperfect you, is the one people need to see. Not because your mess is inspirational, but because your faithfulness is of the mess is. All right, we're in the home stretch here, and I want to leave you with one final thought that I think ties everything together. And it's this: every time you compare yourself to someone else, you step out of your calling and into confusion. Let me say that again because it's so important. Every time you compare yourself to someone else, you step out of your calling and into confusion. Because you cannot run your race while watching someone else's lane. You just can't. It doesn't work. You'll stumble. You'll lose focus. You'll end up running the race instead of yours. And their race was never meant for you. Galatians 6:4 says this: each one should test their own actions, then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. Now, when Paul talks about taking pride here, he's not talking about worldly pride, the arrogant, self-centered kind of pride. He's talking about the holy confidence, the quiet assurance that comes from knowing, this is what God has asked me to do, and this is enough. I don't have to do what she's doing. I don't have to achieve what he's achieved. I don't have to keep up with anyone else's pace. I just have to be faithful to what God has put in front of me. And here's what I've noticed. The calling that God gives us often looks different in different seasons. Maybe right now your calling looks quieter than it used to. You're not leading big things or launching big projects or being visible in big ways. Maybe you're caring for aging parents. Maybe you're healing from burnout. Maybe you're rebuilding after loss. Maybe you're simply being faithful in small, unseen things. And the world looks at that and says, you're not doing enough. You're falling behind. But God says, you're right where I need you. This season is sacred. This work is holy. Because the world celebrates visibility, God celebrates obedience. The world applauds big platforms and big audiences and big achievements. God applauds faithfulness in the small moments no one sees. The world says, do more, be more, achieve more. God says, be still and know that I am God. So if you've been feeling behind, can I just remind you of something? You're not behind in God's eyes. You're exactly where He placed you, for this season, for this purpose. And what He's asked you to do, even if it looks small, even if it's unseen, even if it's no one's applauding, it matters. It matters to Him, and it matters in the kingdom. So stop looking at her lane. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to her chapter 20. Stop measuring your progress by someone else's pace. Because that's where peace is. That's where purpose is. And that's where you'll find the life God designed specifically for you. All right, before we close, I want to give you one challenge for this week. Are you ready? Here it is. Take a social media Sabbath, even just for one day. Ouch. Put the phone down, step away from the scroll, give yourself a break from the noise. And use that space, that quiet, uncluttered space, to ask God some questions. Where have I been comparing myself instead of trusting your pace? What have I been calling delay that you might actually be calling preparation? What gifts have you given me that I've been overlooking because I'm too busy wishing I had someone else's? And then journal what comes up. Don't overthink it. Just write. You might be surprised how much peace returns when you stop chasing everyone else's highlight reel and start noticing your own quiet progress. The growth that's happening even when it doesn't look impressive. The faithfulness that's building even when no one's watching. And the work God is doing even when you can't see it yet. And finally, before we close, I want to share a reflection from the 30-day healing journey. This is a devotional I created to help you have intimate conversations with God, the kind that heal, transform, and deepen your relationship with Him. I'll be walking through each day here on the podcast so you can experience the full journey. But if you want to journal through these prompts and really go deeper, you can grab your copy at thegracefulgrowth.com. Okay, today's reflection on day 16 is embracing God's healing power. God's desire to heal us has no bounds. He wants to be invited into every aspect of our lives and for us to share not only the joy, but the pain as well. Sometimes we think that our pain is too small or insignificant for God. This is not at all true. He wants you to go to Him with everything. Remember the size of a mustard seed? Nothing is too big or too small for God. He loves you and wants to help. Share your concerns and have faith that He is always working with your life. Today's verse is Psalms 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And here's your prayer. God, I believe in your power to heal mind, body, and soul. I open myself to your restoration. Without thinking, write down the first thoughts that come to mind when you speak these words. Then take some time with the following. Take time to reflect on the areas in your life where you need healing, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Ask God for His healing power to touch those parts of your life. Ask Him to reveal the reasons behind the pain so you can understand, and then trust that He will work in all of those areas. So use these reflections to set aside some time this week for an intimate conversation with God. All right, friends. Your journey is not supposed to look like anyone else's. You're not too late. You're learning. You're not behind. You're being built. I actually really like that. And you're not forgotten. You're being guided one step at a time by a God who knows exactly where you are and exactly where you're going. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to do a couple of things. First, download my free Season of Light guide at thegracefulgrowth.com. This December companion will help you find peace, purpose, and renewal in God's presence. Instead of rushing through the holidays, you'll learn to pause, prepare your heart, and rediscover the wonder of Christ's coming, not just in December, but in every ordinary moment of life. Second, head over to thegracefulgrowth.com and read the full written version of this episode on the blog. You can bookmark it, share it, or come back to it whenever you need to remember. And third, if you're ready for deeper transformation, download my free 7 Days of Healing guide. It's a simple devotional that will help you start having more intimate conversations with God, the kind that bring you real healing and lasting change. You'll find all the links below in the show notes. And if you know someone who's been caught in the comparison trap, someone who keeps feeling like she's behind or not enough, would you share this episode with her? Because we're all learning to grow gracefully in God's time, not the world's, and at God's pace, not Instagram's. And the more we remind each other of that truth, the freer we all become. So thank you so much for being here today. I'll be back next time with another honest conversation about faith, health, and purpose. We'll be talking about the friendship shift, why some friends don't fit anymore. So until then, take a deep breath, stop comparing, and remember, you're exactly where you're meant to be. I'll talk to you soon. God bless.